Hi folks, it's Calc here, and I thought I'd make a quick video to kind of go through the relationship between the SL Mark III sequencer, controller, keyboard, all-round fantastic device from Novation, and how that relates directly to the component software. I have to say this isn't an official video in any way, shape or form. This is just me just being in the studio Sunday afternoon and putting this together because, well, basically as a result of some conversations I've been having on the SL Mark III users group on Facebook, where there seems to be a little bit of confusion as to what components is, how it works, and I suppose the relationship between it and the SL Mark III. So what I want to do is just spend a little bit of time talking about what components is and what components is not designed to do as well. Also, I've just taken receipt of, down here on the right hand side, a fantastic drum machine from the Sommer Laboratories. I've just bought one of these after a 12-month wait. So I'm very pleased to have that. Now this has some MIDI in it, so I thought it might be a nice opportunity to actually create maybe a template for this and show how I kind of do that as well. So let's crack on and move into the software. And you can see here I've got components up on the screen. And basically components is the software that we use at Novation to manage all the various different devices that we have. And here of course is the SL Mark III. So I'm going to click on this. And basically, this takes me through to the Librarian. So what's the Librarian? Well, the Librarian is basically a holding bay, a storage area for you to be able to save and, you know, basically back up the sessions that you create on the hardware itself. Here I've got a couple of packs here. There's the SL Factory Pack. There's one that I did on the 30th of April. And here's one that I created earlier, Bank Holiday. And basically, these are what you call packs. These are full packs with sessions and with templates. So I'm essentially sort of taking a photograph, if you like, and a good way to think of it is a snapshot of what is in here in terms of data. This is a librarian. It's designed for storing and backing stuff up. It's not designed as an editor for your sessions. So I can't go into these sessions and start to edit the data. I can't go in there and start to say, okay, I need to do a bit of MIDI note changing, or maybe I need to change some templates or whatever. You know, I can't do that within the software. It's not designed for that. It's designed for you to be able to archive and back up your work. If you want to make those edits, if you want to change lists of templates, if you want to change notes, you do that on the hardware. That's what this is designed to do. But if you want to archive your work and make sure you've always got hold of it and you can always get hold of it when you need to, that's when components comes in. So here I've got 3 packs, as I say. This is one actually I uploaded into from the SL as it is at the moment earlier. And whilst I was messing around on this, I've given this thing here a new name, Starting Point. Now these were all called Template, and that's because I created a session that I, quite confusingly I suppose, called Templates. And the reason I did that is that was my starting template for where I like to work from with the SL Mark III. In this page, I've not sent this over to the SL Mark III yet, so it's still labelled Template. But in here is an empty set of 8 different parts. And these basic parts are the parts that I like to start with. So I have Beat Squeezer, Reface, Summit, Octatrack, SH101, a CV-OCD, CV, MIDI to CV converter, TR-08 drum machine, and also the Chase Bliss blooper. So I have those 8 tracks as kind of my foundation, if you like, from where I start from. Now, if I go to, let's go back to the sessions here, and I'll go to this empty session here. And I can go to templates and I can say, okay, well, this track I want to be, I don't know, let's say that's the Big Sky. This track is the Morphogene, that's good enough. Let's say, okay, I want the peak. No, we'll go for the Otto Boom here. I want this one to be the Preen FM, wherever the Preen FM is. I know it's in here somewhere. Off a bit, Preen. There you go, preen FM. And I go along these and I say, okay, I want it to come out of MIDI DIN 2. I want that to come out of no MIDI, but I want both CV and gate. I want auto boom to come out of MIDI DIN 1, but on channel 13. I want the auto boom to be orange. I want the preen FM to be yellow, and that's coming out of DIN 1 on channel, I don't know, let's say, for argument's sake, 14. So now I have another kind of template, if you like, that I've created, or starting point. So I can go to my sessions page here and just say, okay, let's hit save. Let's give it a color. Let's go for, I don't know, like that green there, hit save again, and now I've got this as a starting point as well. So now I have two templates that I can start from, and just by virtue of the fact I've kind of created that and I know where it is, I always know that if I want this one, I'm going to have this bank of instruments. If I want to start afresh but I want to have access to the Big Sky, the Morphogene, the Auto Boom and the Preen FM, then I've got this starting point. We've got 64 sessions on the SL Mark III, so that's a lot of stuff that we can store inside here. So I'm more than happy to give over, you know, a handful of session spaces as starting points for where I can work from. Of course, I could always just go to a standard init session here, and what happens here is it populates it from the first 8 in your templates list. So if I go up to the top here, it says ARP 2600, then we've got Morphogene, TR8S, Octatrack, and then Beat Squeezer, CVOCD, and all that sort of thing. So if I, let's see, what was that? It was on the Octatrack there. Now if I go back to this now, I've got ARP 2600, Morphogene, TR8S, Octatrack, Beat Squeezer, CVOCD, OB6, Big Sky. So basically, the init point starts from the first 8 of the templates in the list here. So alternatively, if you don't want to set up a session that can be a starting point, you can always go into your templates order here and move things around and kind of place them wherever you want. So here I've gone into my pack again, let's go to templates, and I can say, okay, I don't want the Beat Squeezer to be number 4, I want it to be number 1. Which is usually the position that I have my Beat Squeezer. Maybe I want the reface down here to be in position number 2. So I can just move this up. Let's just pop it there so we can scroll up, and then we'll keep going, scrolling up, and we'll get up to, there we go, number 2 is now reface. So now when I send this pack back to the SL Mark III, I know that number 1 is going to be the Beat Squeezer, which is actually the same as this session here, Beat Squeezer, reface. I could go down and grab the next one, which is the Summit, and so on and so forth. And I can populate the first 8 of these templates here to essentially give me the starting point I want without having to take up a session. But for me personally, I am more than happy to do it as a session basis, and also that allows me to set MIDI channels and all that sort of thing in there as well. Okay, so let's go back to the sessions page. I said we created this one before, and let's just take a quick look at what we can do here. So basically I can hit save, and then I can save as, and I can call this Bank Holiday, we'll call this Bank Holiday 1, done. And now in my list of banks here on the side, I have Bank Holiday 1, obviously there's Bank Holiday. Now maybe I want to get rid of this Bank Holiday, and if I go to pack settings here, I can say, okay, delete. Now I've got 3, 2, 1 before that's actually deleted, and now that's been taken out of my list, but no worries because it's in my trash there, and I've got all access to all of these things that have been trashed. So let's take the trash out there. These are kind of filters that you can just say, okay, I just want to see the Novation packs, oh, I just want to see my packs, actually I just want to see the trash. So you can use these as little filter switches. So let's stick with this at the minute. Let's go back to Bank Holiday 1, go to my templates, and look, there's Beat Squeezer and reface in the new places in the template list. Okay, so let's say for argument's sake, I don't want this order of sessions. I want starting point to actually be down in slot 64. So I can just click on it, just drag it down to 64. Now, maybe template 2 here, I want to give it a new name. So I'm going to call this session 2. For want of a better name, session 2, that's confusing, never mind. But let's say actually I don't want starting point to be here, I want it to be in slot 2. So if I just drag it over here onto that second slot, you see it's swapped them. So now in slot 64 I've got session 2, in 2 I've got starting point. So you can basically use this to move things around and organise and order the things that you want in the order that you want as well. Bring starting point back there. Let's bring session 2 back up here. I can also get sessions individually from the device, or I can download sessions individually as well. Now this is good because I can basically create my own sort of a group of sessions here and then just bring them in whenever I want. But equally, you see here I've got this second bank, Calc 30th of April. Well, if I expand that, I can see all the various things I've got in here, and I've got this session here called Fred. Now this is back on the 30th of April, and in that I had a session called Fred, and maybe I want to drag this into my current pack. So I just click on it here and say, okay, let's put Fred onto slot 5. There we go. Actually, Fred's an awkward colour for me because that's the same as starting point as some of the others, so I want to make that purple. So highlight Fred, make him purple, there he is. Maybe I could say I want this particular template and I want this to be on 26. So, I can do all of that. You can click expand here and then just drag and drop. And this is essentially what you get on the librarian side of components for the SL MKIII. Now I mentioned also the templates here. And the templates over here are basically these mappings that you can create. And in here, we've got a whole load of different mappings that have been created. Some are from the factory, some are my own. There's a whole load of template stuff in here. Maybe I want to edit one. So here I've got the beat squeezer. Here's the beat squeezer obviously here, but maybe I've got some of the mappings not quite right. So I can just click on edit and it'll say, okay, you're going to leave this page. Well, that's fine. I'm going to go into the template editor. So yes, leave this page. Now I'm into my template editor and then I can make adjustments. Maybe I want this button over here to be a trigger button, which will send out CC value. I'm not, whatever it is it says that I need. And I can basically create and, start to build or edit the mappings from here. So you can always access from the librarian, if you go to your pack, you can always access your sessions and your templates. And once again, I can download these individual templates here if I want. I can even say replace. So maybe I want to replace this morphogene from one that's in a template pool, or it's an open template. I can open it from the hard drive of the computer, or maybe I want to replace it from something on the SL. So I've got lots of different options of doing that here. Now, let's create a mapping as well. That's the next thing that we'll do. So I'm going to go to Template Editor. And in here, it's basically, the starting page. So I can get a template from the SL MKIII. I can create a template, or I can upload a template from the computer. I'm going to basically start from scratch. I'm going to go to Create Template. Now, I'm going to create a template that allows me to get some control into the Pulsar 23. And basically what I'm going to do is I'm going to mirror the rotary controls and the fader controls. So I'm going to basically set them up to be identical. So I'm going to go to rotary controls first. I'm going to, let's go to this first one. Let's hit the pencil. Let's rename that. And I'm going to call this CV1. Now, the reason I'm going to do that is this is CC21. In the global menu on my SL MKIII, I've got my CV modulation output connected to CC21. That's mod 1. I've got CV modulation output 2 connected to CC22. And that means that basically when I'm on a CV track, I can use CC number 21 to output in the CC outputs there. CV outputs there. Same with 22. So these are perfectly already there for me. So I'm going to call this second one here CV2. Now this next one, I'm going to just stick with these same CC numbers. And the reason is, on the Pulsar 22, it's not fussy. It doesn't care what CC value it's got. It's got a clever system that will learn the CC number as it gets there. I've got a learn button here. I press learn, send it a signal, and then it's going to line up with that CC value. So here, I'm just going to name this post. Let's get that right, post 1. This one I'm going to call post 2. I'm going to call them posts simply because these are posts that you use crocodile clips, alligator clips, or whatever you want to call them, to connect to. So I'm going to just call them posts because that's as good a word as I can think of for them. We'll go post 3. And then this last one, we'll go, oops, name that post 4. Great. So now I've got these. Now I can also, if I want to clear off this information, I can just give that a delete, and it says rotary 7 there. But when I put that back onto the SL Mark III, that will actually give me a blank pot. Let's see if I've got an example. In fact, I think I have, because I made a pulsar mapping earlier that I was testing out with. And yeah, there we go. I took them off there. Okay, I'm just going to record this little bit again because I managed to lose the camera, unfortunately, just as I was getting to a juicy bit. But basically, we've just created this mapping for the Pulsar 23. And I was just showing you how you can have clear labels for the pots just to make it a bit clearer. But actually, I've populated this with another couple of things because I've actually got a couple of additional controls here on the Pulsar I want to use. And how do I save it to the device? And this is something that's cropped up before, and again in a question on the Facebook group. Basically, how do you do it? Because if I go to my templates list here, I've got a whole load of templates here, and how do I count down and know what number template I'm going to store it into? And that can be a bit of a challenge. However, there's a nice kind of easy workaround for this. So here, now you'll see I've got a couple of Pulsar 23s already in here, so I'll call this something else instead this time. So instead of calling it Pulsar 23, I'm going to call this Sunday roast. Why not? Sunday roast. There we go. Okay, so I now have a mapping called Sunday roast, which is in fact a Pulsar 23, but that doesn't particularly match at this point. So I'm going to go to my template list and I'm going to choose an empty initialized MIDI mapping from the template list. They're all down at the bottom. I mean, there's 64 mapping positions in here. And if I go down to the bottom there, I'll find an empty one that says MIDI. It just says MIDI, it's just generic, there's no mappings in there. And I can obviously save my template or store my template onto whichever part I want. So I'm going to go to part 1. Okay, now if I come out, you'll see this, well, you can't maybe see on the screen, but it says MIDI here. So I'm going to go to send to SL Mark I. Now here's the template, and as I say, normally, you know, you just get which index point it's going to go into, and you've got 64 of them, and that can be a challenge to know exactly which one. So if you then say, actually, no, I'm going to store this into a part. So I'm going to store it into part 1, this part of which I selected a blank MIDI mapping. Send part, just takes a second for it to load in. And now there it says Sunday roast. And if I indeed go to my templates list, under the 2 Pulsar 23s that I didn't manage to film earlier as I was making, here I have Sunday roast, and that is now my mapping. If I go here, I've got CV1, CV2, post 1, post 2, post 3, post 4, and the new controls that I added there, shape and warp. So that's a nice, easy and quick way of being able to get your template into the right position in the template list. Don't use the template list itself. Use the parts. Just load up a simple part, load up a part with a simple MIDI initialized mapping, and then you can say, okay, send to SL Mark III, go to part, and then just send it to that part. It makes it so much easier to do it that way. That's the way that I do it. Okay, I'm going to wrap up now, but I hope that's been interesting for you. I hope it's been, you know, useful to understand a little bit more about the kind of the relationship really between component software and also the SL Mark III. As I said at the beginning, it's really, you know, a place to back up and store your work, a place to create mappings, your own custom mappings. It's not a full-blown editor for this hardware. The editor for this hardware is in this hardware itself. That's its whole purpose. You know, if I want to move templates around on parts, I have everything in front of me to be able to do that. If I want the Auto Boom to be on this track here, great. If I want the Summit track here to instead to be, I don't know, let's say a Peak, yep, great. If I want the Octa track here to be the Circuit, there it is. If I want the SH101 to be the ARP 2600, there it is, and so on and so forth. It's very quick and simple to do everything directly on here. You know, it's not a case of you go into components and then do that kind of editing. Components is really a place to create your own mappings and then store your session data. And that's pretty much what components gives you. So I hope that's been interesting. I hope it's been useful to you. It's taken a little while to get this video together. I've been kind of sort of managing a screaming child and trying to do this as well on a Sunday. But anyway, there we go. It's I hope it's useful. If you have specific questions, I'm going and dipping into the Facebook SL Mark III group, and I have to be honest, I'm not a big Facebook user whatsoever, but I just think that the SL Mark III, you know, for me personally, I've said this many times, this is one of my favourite things, you know, that I make music on, without a shadow of a doubt. A full-blown 8-track sequencer with a lot of powerful capabilities attached to a keyboard sits just right with me. And I hope, you know, by visiting in there and answering a few questions here and there, I can help people on their journey with it as well. So I hope it's been useful. Thanks very much for watching, and enjoy your day. Cheers.